Welcome to another live stream. So, sorry for the delay at the start there. I was figuring things out. So, I hope everyone is doing well. And one good thing is that I'm already getting a warning. So I might have to reduce this to ultra low latency. We'll see how it goes. Okay, cool. All right. Anyway, so sorry about that. All right. Welcome everyone to the stream. So this is going to be another one of reacting to some antinatalist videos. There's been a bunch made recently. In fact, I was talking to Tejas, who does the Antinatalism This Week videos, yesterday or whenever it was, about how much stuff is being made recently. So it's kind of hard to keep up, especially for him, because obviously he watches, I don't know if he watches everything, but he watches a lot to be able to do his videos. So who have we got in the chat already? So No Injustice Lasts Forever was the first in there. Well, apart from me, but obviously I knew when I was scheduling the stream, so I don't really count. So welcome to the chat. We've got Kodak, Antinatalism, Dio as well. Yeah, Dio is putting a test in there. I don't know if that's for them or for me. Anyway, so yeah, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the stream, rather. So yeah, I've got a couple of things to go through before we start actually watching the videos. You might have guessed what videos we're going to do, at least at the start, from the thumbnail. Maybe you recognized a couple. Some of them new, some of them old. Some of them are very new, and actually some of them are quite old. Anna's also in the chat. Welcome, Anna. So yeah, but I wanted to go over a few things first before we get into the actual videos. So yeah, one big thing happening is that, so Nimrod, you'll all remember from doing his European tour, I did an interview with him before he set out. He's now finished. I think he finished, I can't remember exactly when he finished, but it was a while ago now. John's in the chat. Welcome, John. And yeah, No Injustice Lasts Forever has got one of the videos, Tofu Dog's recent video with the pasta, as in the religious clergyman, not the type of food. So yeah, so Nimrod has just recently finished his European tour, and he is already gonna be doing another one. So yeah, he's doing another mini European tour. I think the reason for this is that there were a few places he didn't get to go to on the tour that he wanted to go to, and so there's that. There's a couple of places he went to that were very successful. He got good connections, so he wants to go back very soon. And another reason is that yeah, he didn't include the UK or London in his tour, and he was planning to come to London for the end of June, the end of this month. Anyway, and come and do some activism with us here. So he's doing his mini tour, mini European tour through Europe, and then ending in London where he was going to be coming. So you can see he's got his mini tour and then a London antinatalist weekend, which is going to be, there's going to be two different events happening. We're going to the Pride March, not as not to try and co-opt it or anything, but just going with supportive signs, but also that mention procreation in maybe an indirect or soft way, because we're not there to gate crash or anything. And then on the Sunday we're going to Speaker's Corner, which is sort of many of you may already know. It's a a sort of debate place in London. It's got a history and a culture of free speech and open debate and stuff. So we're going to do that as well, and then we'll have a meal on the Saturday. So if any of you are near or in London or can get to London for that weekend, then please come along and join us. It would be amazing. So the dates are here. So this is on my community tab on YouTube. So if you want to get all these, in front of you so that you can, figure stuff out, all of this is on my community tab. Wise Man is in the chat as well. Don't know what that was. Wise Man is in the chat as well. Welcome. So yeah, he'll be going to Slovenia. I have no idea how to say that city. Italy to Milano. Switzerland to Freiburg and Bern. France, he's doing Paris again. So in Slovenia, he did that on his first tour, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember if he did Milan on his first tour. He may have done, but he did do Italy. Switzerland, he didn't do. So that I think that's why he's going to Switzerland. He didn't do Switzerland, so he wanted to go back and do that. Paris, he did on Earth Day, I think, in his last one. And then he's ending up in London for the big London weekend, which is over the whole weekend, and that will be great. So there's a few local people joining him. He's coming, obviously. Yeah, if any of you can make it, even if you're not, in the UK at the moment, but you feel like, you wanted to come to London anyway, make a weekend of it, definitely come along and join us. So yeah, Nimrod will be there. I'll be there. A bunch of the local London people will be there. So yeah, and talking of London, another thing I just quickly wanted to let you guys know, again on my community tab, is that we had a recent London Antinatalist meetup. I encourage everyone watching, please, organize meetups in your local area. Loads of people see these pictures and say, I wish there was something in my local area. Well, it's not going to happen until someone organizes it, is it? So like, you can be the person to organize it. So that would be amazing. Very quickly, Wise Man has just sent in a super chat. Thank you so much, Wise Man. Thank you for the support. There's a bunch of stuff coming up recently and some potential exciting stuff coming up as well, which, is not confirmed. Don't know if it's going to happen, but if it does, this will also really help support that. Thank you so much, Wise Man. So Wise Man actually put a chat, so let me read that out first, saying, I'm gay as well, so much easier to be an antinatalist, laugh my ass off. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, so I used to say that I was envious of people who are gay because, it's like nowadays with modern technology, obviously, a gay
children in this world, and we raise them to be warriors against evil.
Sorry, I don't know if you guys heard that if the volume came through. Yeah, you did. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, that threw me off. But that was the super chat then coming through the back end. I can't remember where I was. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, I used to say that because obviously with modern technology, obviously like a gay couple can have a kid, with both of their I think modern technology is to the point where you can use both of their genes. I don't know, I'm kind of ignorant on that. But yeah, anyway, but obviously it's not as much of a jump to let's do this than heterosexual couples. Anyway, now I'm much more I'm just jealous of asexual people, who just don't have any. It would be life would be so much easier if you didn't have a sex drive and stuff like this. But anyway, that's kind of irrelevant. So let's move on quickly. So anyway, so Wise Man in their super chat says, I used to argue with you, but now I'm full-blown antinatalist. Thank God I'm gay. It takes it much easier. Do you mean, Wise Man, that you used to argue with me specifically, or you used to argue with antinatalists? I'll just bring myself up big again. Because if you used to argue with me specifically, do I know you personally? Or anyway, yeah, let me know. Or did we have a debate ages ago? Because I'm very bad at remembering. Oh yes, with me. Oh okay. So when did we have that? But amazing, that you're now antinatalist. Oh, you used to spam me on Instagram. Oh, you know what? I think I might know who you are. Yeah, I can remember if it's the person I'm thinking of. I can remember your Yeah, it was a while back. If you're the person I'm thinking of, I can remember your picture. I don't remember what your name was. If it was Wise Man on there as well, then I'm thinking of the wrong person. But if it was a different name, then I think I know. But yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Wise Man. Don't apologize. I actually don't know what you're apologizing for. But thank you for the support. Welcome to the chat, and thanks so much for joining us. So, let's go back. So yeah, we had a London meetup. We had a visitor from Singapore. This lady here, I'm not using her name because I don't know if she want me to, but she was visiting from Singapore. She is an antinatalist, and yeah, she joined us. We had a meetup. Everyone else, this guy, it was his first time joining us, but everyone else had been before. And you know, some are sort of like regulars. Yeah, and there's me, and we were in a place called Temple of Satan in London, if anyone knows it, in Camden. Cool. Okay, that is that. Another thing I know you all came for the video reactions, but another thing I also wanted to quickly bring to your attention is, I've already mentioned him, Tejas. So I believe his next video, Antinatalism This Week, will be coming out tomorrow, I think is usually how it works. I think it usually comes out on a Sunday. So yeah, so Tejas, the guy who runs the Cosmic Antinatalist, he is doing the Lord's work. If there is a Lord, I don't think there is, but if there is / was, then he's doing his work. So basically, if you don't know, this YouTube channel run by Tejas, he basically is like, as it says here, the Times of Antinatalism. Like, he does weekly roundups of everything to do with antinatalism that's happening. And it's great. So yeah, you can see he does them, you know, every week. They come out every weekend, and he covers like the big things that have happened, news articles that have come out, videos that have been posted, you know, all sorts. He brings them all together so you don't have to constantly keep up with things. And he also gives a bit of commentary on there, and usually chucks in a couple of jokes and a bit of banter. So yeah, really good stuff. I really enjoy it. It's to be honest, I look forward to it every week. I think it is probably some of the, if not the highest quality antinatalist content that's being produced regularly right now. So definitely go over the Cosmic Antinatalist, or just type in Antinatalism This Week. Tejas is doing great stuff, so go and support him, watch his videos. And then the next one should be coming out tomorrow, if I'm right, but they come out every weekend. Okay, right, let me sort my tabs out, and then we will tackle the videos. So some of you might have tuned in. Prasad is in the chat. Also Nadia as well. Welcome both of you to the chat. There are 28 people watching, and there's definitely not 28 people in the chat. So if you're watching and you haven't said hello or anything, please get in the chat and say hello, because it'd be nice to see who's watching, and get some more activity going. Cool. Okay, so last time I did one of these, I think this is the 6th antinatalist video reacting stream I've done. And the last one I did, it got cut off short because I had some plans and they happened earlier than I thought they were going to happen. So I had to like quickly get off. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish the video that got cut off last time, which is this one by a guy called Daniel Mackler, which some of you may know. Mario said hello in the chat, or not even said hello. What even is that? Is that I think that is a rainbow fan, you know, one of those old style fans. Welcome Mario, welcome Kartik, and Wise Man again. So cool. Okay, so yeah, Daniel Mackler, he you know, I probably don't need to give him an introduction, actually, to be honest. You probably all know him. I've watched a bunch of his videos on these streams before. Rose is in the chat as well. Hi there, I love your channel. Thank you so much, Rose. Really appreciate you watching and enjoying it. I'm glad you find it valuable. So yeah, I won't give an intro to Daniel because probably everyone knows him. He does some really interesting videos. This one is on 9 unhealthy reasons people have kids, or children. So just a bit of context, if no one's seen his videos before, I would not be surprised if he is an antinatalist to some degree, but he's not like confirmed one, right? So he's very like skeptical, I would put it. He's very skeptical of reproduction, right? And the motivations people have for it and the way it's carried out and stuff like that. That's probably the way I'd put it. He's very like, skeptical. Whether he's an antinatalist is another thing. I don't know if we have enough, reason to say that he is. At some point, I hope to speak to him. I keep meaning to reach out, but I never get around to it. But he's definitely skeptical of reproduction. So I think if he had a conversation with an antinatalist, he would vibe a lot with it. Maybe that is like a bad assumption, but or a faulty assumption. But yeah, I think he's close, right? So cool. So yeah, 9 unhealthy reasons to have children. So let's see if we can finish this one this time.
So often.
And let me know if there are any audio issues.
And I see people's reasons and motivations for having children as being extremely unhealthy. So I would like to list some of these unhealthy reasons and motivations. The first one that I see so commonly is that people have children just because they like to have sex. They like to have unprotected sex with a partner who maybe they had no desire to have children.
So this is an interesting one because I can't remember when it was. I think it was at least like a year or maybe it was even longer than that ago now. There was a statistic released by the UN saying that basically 50% of pregnancies worldwide are unintentional. So basically they're the result of sex. Basically people, wanted to have sex and then a pregnancy resulted, as a consequence of that. It's not that they were going into... it's not that their motivations weren't to like create a child, right? So it's like no wonder he puts this one first. Like half of pregnancies, and how many pregnancies? There are like thousands and thousands, maybe there are even millions of pregnancies every year. In fact, there probably are millions of pregnancies every year. And it's just like, this is crazy. Even if you are like a pro-natalist and you think having children is good, like these people surely at least think that even if it's good to have children, right, and create someone, that it should be done responsibly. I can't, you'd have to be a pretty callous and ideological person to say, no, we just need to pump more people out with not really like much care, like very little concern for the conditions we're doing it in. We just need to get more people out there for whatever reason. I don't even know what the motivation would be. Maybe it's a calling from God or something like that. But yeah, we're currently in a situation where half of pregnancies are unintended. Like that, those are like dire straits. Like, it just shows how little regard people have for how like serious an issue procreation, like serious a thing procreation is. The fact that people will just like have sex and like, surely if it's half of pregnancies, like that is a lot of pregnancies. It's not going to be the case that all of these people are like, proper, like on the pill, condom, multiple forms of contraception. It seems, I'd have to look at the report behind the statistic, but it seems unlikely to me that like if you're using decent contraception and you're being considered in this, that many unintended pregnancies would happen. So it's like we're already in the situation where so much procreation, or at least so much pregnancies, because it depends if they have an abortion or not, but so much pregnancies will happen as a result of basically just negligence. It's kind of like the Wild West. We've got another super chat from Wise Man. What a legend. And I'm going to remember that it comes to the back end later so I don't get like sidetracked this time.
We bring children in this world
here it comes.
We raise them to be warriors against evil.
Wait for it to finish. Okay, cool. So the child warriors. So, and that was actually the 20th super chat that I've ever got through live stream, which is pretty cool. So thanks for that, Wise Man. So Wise Man, first of all, thank you again so much for the support. And Wise Man says, you make a lot of videos on why not to have kids. You should make a video or videos on how to live a good life without kids. That, you know, that is so interesting because I have it's not a video as in one of my normal videos, but it was going to be a discussion with another antinatalist YouTuber who I won't say the name of because I don't know if we've mentioned it publicly if we were going to do that video. And they may not, for whatever reason, want, you know, that to be out publicly. But myself and another person who makes videos about antinatalism have said that we wanted to make a video like that. So we actually, or have a discussion, you know, but obviously it'll be in video format, about that, on like how to live a good life without kids, right? And yeah, so it's interesting you say that. So what I will do is I will have a bit more of a think about that, and then I'll reach out to them again and maybe try and get that set up for, like, you know, in the next couple of months. So yeah, thanks for the reminder. And also, if anyone has any ideas for that, if anyone has like any ideas that they've thought about that they think, you know, I think to live a good life without having children, which essentially the question is how to live a good life, right? Like, definitely put it in the chat, send an email to me. My email is in the description of this live stream, because yeah, it'd be interesting to take into account as many things as possible. Yeah, Wise Man, if you've got a few ideas, then definitely put them in an email and send them over to me, and we'll take them into consideration when we're having that discussion. But thanks so much for raising that and reminding me, and also in advance for your email. Linda does stuff is also in the chat. Welcome, Linda. Being unwanted, let's go. Yeah, I'm assuming that's in reference to like all of the unintended pregnancies. Old School Ninja, when you first had these thoughts, did people call you negative? To be honest, I can't remember all the interactions I had when I first became antinatalist, but I assume they did, because they do now and they always have. So I assume so, Old School. So yeah, probably, but I can't remember specific instances. Wait, if we're going to go through a few chats and stuff, I'll bring myself up. So, and we've also got Religion of Peace is in the chat. Welcome, Religion of Peace. You in fact choose to opt out of life without kids. Switzerland has euthanasia legal. Oh, you can in fact choose to opt out of life without kids. Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously if your life gets to the place where it's awful and there's no prospect for it improving, then, you know, obviously euthanasia is like a decent option. And it should be available, you know, to everyone to have that as a consideration, you know, obviously safeguards accounted for. I don't know if that applies to people without kids more, though. I think it, you know, probably, you know, it's a consideration for everyone, I think. Cool. Anna says, my 24-year-old cousin who doesn't have a place of her own and is an unemployed university student just got pregnant accidentally. I didn't really know how to react, but tried to be supportive. Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to like your own family, it's definitely a tricky one. And also when someone is already in the situation where they're pregnant, right? So let's say, I mean, let's say I'm in your situation. So one of my cousins, she's gotten pregnant, presumably unintentionally. Yeah, you said accidentally. So she's gotten pregnant. I'm assuming, you know, she's very confused at the moment. She's like, oh, fuck, you know, this has come from left field. I didn't expect this. And yeah, I don't know what to do. You know, now I'm in this situation where it's like I've actually got to, in a really real way, grapple with the ethics of abortion. And I've got to think about my future in a very real way, which I maybe haven't had to in such an immediate way before. So it's going to be a very confusing time, right? So I mean, maybe people are going to, well, not maybe, people are definitely going to have different opinions on this. My approach in that situation is like, if I have a family member who is in that situation, they're going to be probably very emotional at that time, very confused. There's a lot on the line for them. So I wouldn't see that as an opportunity to talk about antinatalism or anything like that. I would counsel them. Again, it depends on the situation. I don't know far along she is. You know, if she's like quite late now, then then the ethics of abortion get like a lot more complicated. But yeah, assuming like it's very early on, then I would just counsel for an abortion. But even then, it's such a tricky line. And yeah, I think all you can be is supportive, to be honest. It's a fucking tricky one. That's why obviously the best thing is just not like to conceive in the first place, not to be in this position. But once someone's pregnant, yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a fucking tricky one. So yeah, and to be honest, I'm not qualified to give this advice. So actually, don't listen to me. But yeah, I sympathize for your position. To be honest, I sympathize for your cousin as well. I mean, I don't sympathize for the negligence because I'm assuming, I don't know the situation, but I'm assuming there was some negligence there. So, but yeah, it's a tricky situation to be in. All I can say is I hope it works out in the best way. Okay, and Anna said she's too far along to get an abortion. So, to be honest, all you can do is just like whatever part you want to play in that child's life as your cousin's child. What would that make you? Would that be like would you be a second cousin or whatever? Anyway, all you can do is just be like supportive now, counsel against having future children. And once that child is born, try to play a part in, facilitating them have as good a chance as possible is basically all you can do now. But yeah, Anna, thank you for sharing that with us. And apologies for the verbal diarrhea there. Because I feel like I actually didn't give that much or any valuable advice. Cool. Johan's in the chat. Johan says they finally made it to a live stream. Welcome. Glad that you're here. Johan says, how are you? When is the time we are able to do a live discussion with you? I am not sure. If you send me an email, or if we've already been emailing and I've emailed you, if you respond to my email, then we can talk about that via email. Because yeah, doing it live right now is not the one. Yaman's in the chat. I'll just quickly get through a few more of these, and then we'll focus on the videos because I know that's what everyone's here for. Yeah, everyone is here for. Yeah. Yaman is in the chat. Welcome to the chat. Also Omar as well. Yaman says, what are my thoughts on Abu Ala Al-Mari? Big fan. He was a top legend by my accounting. I do have pretty much a finished video script on him and his antinatalist views, which has been finished for maybe nearly a year now. And I've actually been waiting for some feedback for someone who's like a bit of an expert in Al-Mari, and I haven't heard back. So I'm thinking at some point I might just have to like publish it without getting the feedback. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a bit unfortunate because it would have been really valuable to get that feedback. But yeah, he was a top legend. Omar says, hey Lawrence, do you think antinatalism is more superior to veganism? Totally depends what aspect you're talking about. It depends what you mean. I mean, I'm assuming you're asking me if I could convince someone to be a vegan or an antinatalist, which one would I go for? That completely depends on the person. Yeah, I'm not sure. To be honest, I'm not sure I could give a good answer to that. I think I would probably, bearing in mind I haven't thought about this an insanely large amount, but my gut reaction at the moment is probably I would focus on veganism first, And then once they're vegan, people tend to be more open to antinatalism. So then I'd like try to talk to them about antinatalism. But yeah, that's yeah. Just because like a vegan natalist, so a vegan who has kids brings far fewer sentient beings into existence in my understanding than an antinatalist who's not vegan, right? Because obviously if you're not vegan, you're eating animals usually every day, or most days, and those animals obviously have to be brought into existence. So and they have just much worse lives. So yeah, I'd probably go for veganism first. Cool. Okay. I'm gonna focus. I'm gonna focus back on the videos because I know that's what everyone's here for, and I will come back to the chat later, and we'll. But yeah, if anyone has questions or anything like that they want to say in the chat, go for it, and I'll come back to the chat in a bit.
With, but it just happened. So oops, we got pregnant. So let's have a child. That's one reason I think is very unhealthy. Another one is that people are lacking in purpose in their life. They don't really have a strong direction. And so when they have a child, suddenly they have a built-in direction.
Yeah, this one is awful. I've seen so many people, like this is a really common one. And what's funny is that like a lot of, I've heard this so much about how, people, so there's like this conservative trend at the moment where they like demonize child free, not everyone, but like, sometimes it's happened a lot with like dinks, dual income, no kids, where they like demonize child free people or antinatalists, saying, these people just, they are going to live frivolous lives and, seek immediate pleasures and this sort of stuff, consumerist, blah, blah, blah. And basically the implication is that these people's lives are basically meaningless. They have no real meaning in them. And so they just need to do these things to distract themselves from the fact that their life has no meaning, really. But what's funny about that is that, like, in my eyes, none of our lives have any ultimate meaning. And so, like, all of us are just engaging in things to distract ourselves from the fact that our lives have no meaning and are ultimately pointless, right? So it's like people having kids are doing that as well. These people who say, oh, child-free people, they have to find things to, fill up their life. So, so that, they don't realize that their life is meaningless or avoid the fact that their life is meaningless. Well, what have you done by having a kid? Like, rather than like distracting yourself with those things that you're criticizing the child-free people for, you've just had a kid, which is going to fill up loads of your time and take loads of your attention. And that's also going to be a distraction from the fact your life is pointless. So I don't get the point they're trying to make. It's like they're criticizing someone for something, but they've done the exact same thing. It's just what they've done is fuck someone else over by bringing them into existence to solve their own problem of their life being meaningless. So yeah. So yeah, that like whole, it's generally conservatives I've seen doing that. When they do that, it doesn't fly with me. And another thing I was going to say is gone from my head. So let's continue.
They have a built-in purpose. In a way, they give themselves a job to do. They're using that child as an object to guide their own life. They're not having that child for the purpose deeply and inherently of loving that child and raising a healthy person. They might say it, but underneath it, really what it is.
But even if someone has a child to deeply love that child, ultimately that is a form of distraction as well. It's like we all have this deep desire to want to have deep connections with others, be loved, love others, this sort of stuff, right? And then you're just creating someone that you can fulfill a desire that you have. Otherwise you're going to have like anguish in your life, right? So it's essentially, it's the same thing. You've got a problem in your life or some sort of, unsatisfied desire, and you've created someone to hope to remedy that, right? So it's again the same thing. I can understand that that is a better it's, you know, it's not, it doesn't mean it's okay. But if you're looking at all the reasons to have a child, if the motivation that you have is to love that child and give them a good life, then, you know, ignoring antinatalism, that's probably the best reason, even though I think that still is just like basically cope for you, you know, because you've got this desire you want to fulfill and you're using the child to do that. It's a better cope than like other ones, if you get what I mean, which doesn't make it okay, but it's the best one, or it's the least bad, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, maybe someone's going to come up with like a less bad one than that, but that seems like if you're going to have a child, the best motivation is that you love that child, you want the best for them, blah, 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 even though it makes no sense to me because they didn't exist to want to come into existence in the first place, and you're going to impose a load of suffering on them and they're going to die, but whatever.
Is they are creating that child from a lack of something in their life. And there's lots of other things that people can lack inside that give them a reason to have children, a motivation. Another one. Some people desperately want to control other people. And if they cannot find other adults, especially to control in their lives, because a lot of times it's harder to control an adult, and they have such a need to control some external being, they create a child. And what easier person to control than a child? And yet, what's so interesting is so often they don't have to admit it, because what they can say is, oh, I'm not controlling my child, my child.
So Anna has just put in the chat, the best way to give meaning to your life is to help others and prevent suffering. So that actually goes back to what we were talking about before when Wise Man was saying about, you know, how to live a good life. I think Anna's hit the nail on the head there, right? Like I think, yeah, the best way. And so the best way doesn't necessarily mean the most effective in fulfilling your desire, because there may be others, but they may be selfish reasons, right? Like having a child for some people will be a more effective way of fulfilling that desire than going out and helping others, right? But that doesn't mean it's the best way, right? Because you're still fucking someone over and imposing suffering on someone else to get what you want. What I interpret you to mean, Anna, is that, but you may not mean it this way, but what I understand is that it's the best way is to help others and alleviate the suffering of others and protect others, is because one, that will very often bring you a deep sense of meaning and purpose in your life, which, you know, we all desire and we all need. But it also does a lot of good as well, right? And yeah, so that I agree with you. That for me is like, that's the best, you know, way to give your life meaning. Not because it's the most effective, although for a lot of people it is very effective. It's the fact that it's doing good as well. Also, I just want to say hello to new people in the chat. I think it's just Greenleaf, but welcome to the chat, Greenleaf.
Child is controlling me. I have to get up, I have to bring them to certain places, I have to feed them all the time, I have to change their diapers, I have to make sure they're sleeping. Oh, it's so difficult, I can't do all the things I want. They can paint themselves as the victim, whereas unconsciously, they actually really are the ones who are playing out the control on the child.
Yes, and they're the ones who elected to do that, right? You can't just completely freely say, I'm going to create a child because I want to save, you know, my problems. To save my problems? Did I say that? To solve my problems or try and solve them. You can't say that and then like bitch and moan about it afterwards. Like you've screwed yourself over there, right? I mean, okay, we can have sympathy for you because, you know, people are misguided sometimes. They, you know, they do dumb stuff, but like you can't just you just completely unnecessarily chose to do that. And like, don't try and get sympathy from other people, you know, because you're in a shit situation that you just put yourself in. Now, if people have put themselves in shit situations because they've made an error of judgment, then I do think they should get our sympathy, right? But like there was a victim in this one, right? You know, it's not just that you've screwed yourself over with your error of judgment, you've screwed others over. So I feel like it's less desiring of sympathy there. I feel like there's more sympathy is, you know, should be aimed towards the child. But yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be totally unsympathetic to those people, because, you know, there is cultural programming and blah 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 and all this sort of stuff. So, you know, we should be empathetic, but, you know, sometimes it's hard to when someone just does something so like selfishly and it screwed someone else over, and then it backfires on them, and it's like, you know, we should give you some sympathy, but it's a bit difficult to right now.
Another unhealthy motivation for people to have children is they want someone onto whom they can act out their own unconscious childhood traumas. They want, in a way, an object, a sort of blank screen onto whom they can project their rage, they can act out their sadness, they can act out their feelings of abandonment. Even they want someone they can abuse. And what better person to do that to than a child? Because society gives parents so much liberty, especially on an emotional level, to play out abusive dynamics with children. A lot of the things that parents do to children, especially young children, if they tried to do this with someone who is older, especially with another adult, it would be against the law. And they can yet, in our society and lots of societies in the world, they can play out these dynamics under the guise of education, under the guise of reformation, under the guise of discipline, molding, being a good parent. And yet really what they're doing is they're acting out all their unconscious, unprocessed rage and sadness and hurt and grief and abandonment from their own relationship with their parents in childhood. Another reason is financial advantage. Now, a lot of people say, oh, how can you say that? It costs so much to have a child. And it does cost a lot to have a child if you're doing a really good, healthy, independent job raising your child. But a lot of people have children to get money. And I'm not talking just from the government, though a lot of people do have children to get extra perks from the government. They can also have children to get money from their own parents, because a lot of parents, they won't give their adult children money, but when the children have children of their own, oh, we need to support our grandchildren, sometimes they'll dole out a lot of money. Or people can have children to get money from their partners. This is another one. What if that person senses that their relationship with their partner is ending? Well, if they have a child with that partner and they break up, sometimes that partner is going to be required to give them a lot of money, and a lot more money than they would have otherwise been required to give. And this...
Omar's just put in the chat saying yeah, I run a lot in nature and love life, and all it is just I wish I was not here in the first place, never been born, would have been way better outcome. Which again, I think goes back to like how to live a good life, right? Like, and also there's a book I've been reading, it's over there, so I don't, you know, I can't get it, but it's called Begetting by Mara van der Lucht. I think I'm saying her last name wrong. But anyway, so there's a section in there where she talks about how, you know, there is this position of appreciating the experiences you have in life and enjoying it even, but recognizing that it's better not to bring anyone else here. So it's essentially like the sort of, I don't know what a good way of putting it is. Like, I was thinking life appreciating antinatalist, but I'm not sure if that is the right way to put it. But yeah, I think you get what I mean, right? And I think, yeah, that goes like back to how to live a good life. It's like, yeah, we should encourage the perspective of saying, you know, don't bring anyone else here. But at the same time, we shouldn't encourage the wallowing in the sort of, you know, rejection of life and, you know, and our own like suffering. You know, we should work on, you know, we should like work on ourselves so that we don't, you know, well, it's hard because obviously, you know, there's a whole range of like things that will, you know, get people like, you know, depression and things like this. So it's difficult. It doesn't apply to everyone, but to people who it can apply to, it's good to sort of essentially just like accept that, like, yeah, you're here now. Just have a good as time as possible. Try to help others have a good a time as possible, and don't bring anyone else here. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it works well for me. Seems like it works well for Omar. I also run as well. Trying to get back into it. Like, I used to run a lot more, but like I've started to get back into it recently. In the UK, we have this thing called, Joseph's put optimistic nihilism. Maybe that is the best way to put it. But yeah, so in the UK, we have this thing called Park Run, which I don't know if you have it in other countries. Maybe there are some other countries that have it. But there's this thing called Park Run. So on every Saturday, people from the local community will go on a run together for 5 kilometers. And it's totally free to join. You know, you just turn up and run with people. And yeah, I have one literally right next to where I live. So in this big park. So I did that this morning. It's 9 o'clock every Saturday. And yeah, I did that this morning. Not the best time. I used to be a lot more in shape, especially with running. I think I actually used to be quite decent. But yeah, kind of slipped now. So I'm not amazing, but yeah, I'm basically hovering at like, 25 minutes for 5 kilometers, but it's not a flat 5 kilometers, right? The one near me has like ups and downs and stuff like this, and there's mud and blah, blah, blah. But I'm getting 25 minutes in there, so I think it's all right. You know, and it's something to build on as well. So I'll hopefully I'll only get quicker. Cool. Yeah, Johan is asking for my email. So Johan, it's in the description of this live. So if you are watching this live stream, go to the description of it, and my email is in there. Or if you just go on my channel, then you know, on the information bit, it's also listed there. Cool.
Leads me into another motivation, and that is that people can have children to try to save a dying marriage, to save an unhealthy marriage. Oh, let's have children to bond us. Our relationship is drifting apart. Perhaps we don't love each other anymore. Perhaps we never did love each other. Perhaps we don't like each other anymore. Perhaps the pink cloud of romance is gone. Let's try to recreate it by cementing it by creating a child.
Such a bad idea. And it's a lot to put on a child as well. And it's just like having a child. Obviously, I don't know because I don't have a child. But what I've heard from friends and people I know who do have children is like it just makes things a lot more complicated, and like it just raises the stakes basically. So it's like if your relationship is already failing or on rocky on the rocks, then it's like chucking a child in there. I mean, for some people, it could save the relationship. That doesn't make it right, but it could save the relationship. But that does not seem like I mean, therapy is probably, you know, or just separating is probably a better route to go.
This can bring us together, they think. And sometimes it actually works.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Sorry. Good one, Linda. Cheers for catching that.
For a while. Often it doesn't work. Often it can make terrible problems, especially from the perspective of a child, to realize that they were created to cement their parents' relationship. An unhappy, unloving relationship, that's a big burden for the child. Another reason that parents can have children is for status. In our world, it can give a parent a lot of status if they have a child, or if they have 1 or 2 or 3 children. So many people, oh, it's so wonderful, congratulations for you having a child. People sometimes who had no status in society, no status in their family system, no status in their friendship circle, can sometimes get a lot of status from just being a parent. They can have such pride in it. It doesn't mean that they're good parents at all. It doesn't mean that they love their children. Maybe they can take photos and make it look like they're a wonderful, loving parent, but underneath it, they were just really in it for the external societal perks I've seen that a lot. And these are things that people don't admit. Often they don't even admit it to themselves in a conscious way, but they really can do it. Another thing is I have seen, not infrequently, people having children as a distraction in their life, something that will allow them to focus away from the problems they're having, focus away from the pain that they're experiencing, maybe even a distraction from their own growth or from their sense of emptiness inside themselves.
It can even be like, yeah, it can even be more fundamental than that, because let me just get up. There's an Arthur Schopenhauer quote. Yeah. Okay, cool. This is it. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I have just found it on Reddit, but obviously, you can find this in a more legit place. But yeah, so basically, there's this quote. This bit. Yeah. So it says, for if life, in the desire for which our essence and existence consists, possessed in itself a positive value and real content, there would be no such thing as boredom. Mere existence would fulfill and satisfy us. And when I first heard that quote, I was like, that is so true. And it was like what I was saying earlier, like essentially everything is a distraction. Everything we do is either just to continue our life or distract us from the fact, like we always need to have something to do. It's essentially to distract from the fact that our existence is either pointless or doesn't have inherent value, right? Not moral value, but inherent value in terms of like he says, just mere existence isn't something that we actually like. It's not valuable to us, which is why we need to always distract ourselves. I haven't really said that in a very like succinct or like compelling way. I'll have to think about it more. But what's interesting is that some, Buddhism does actually encourage a focus on mere existence. So, and I know that Schopenhauer was influenced by Eastern thought. So, that's an interesting one. I have to think about that more as well. And at some point, I wanted to do a video on Buddhism and antinatalism, so I'll have to tackle that bit as well. But yeah, I really appreciated that quote, because I just thought like, yeah, basically everything, like even me running this YouTube channel is essentially just I want to have a positive impact in the world. So that's one reason I'm doing it. I enjoy doing it as well. I want to promote this message and blah, blah, blah. But essentially all those things, I want to pursue them because they give me some sort of, sense of fulfillment, or I think it's positive. And those are ultimately all just like, distractions from the fact that it's like, I'm here, I now exist. There's no ultimate, purpose for my existence. And meaning, like no ultimate meaning to my life. So I've essentially got to create my own meaning and do things in my life to distract from that fact, if you get what I mean. I'll have to think about that more to put it in a better way, but hopefully people get like the kernel of what I'm trying to say.
Or maybe just as something kind of like a pet. Oh, here's something interesting that's going to give me something.
Oh, sorry. And also, Joseph asks, have you ever seen the movie Children of Men? So, yeah, I saw it. I actually watched it like a few months ago because I was like, I need to watch that. Like, so many people have told me about it. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I was kind of like, oh, I recognize this as well. So I think I might have watched it when I was a kid, because when I was a kid, me and my dad watched loads of film. That was, that was like a big thing we did together. We watched so many films. And I think that was one of them. But yeah, I really enjoyed it as a film, and I was thinking I might rewatch it and then maybe do some sort of like, video about it or something like that. But I haven't really thought about it that much. But yeah, Joseph says, and if so, I'm just wondering what your view of it is. As an antinatalist, I obviously interpret it through a different lens than I imagine the intention. Yeah, I mean, It depends what you mean by what do I think of it. Like, I enjoyed it as a film. I thought it was a good film. In terms of like, yeah, do I think reality will play out that way? I've no idea, to be honest. I don't know how reality would play out. I mean, as birth rates declined, well, the thing is that obviously that was in a situation where no one could have kids, right? Rather than people were choosing not to have those kids. Because at the moment, we're in a situation where people just aren't having kids that they could have. So for whatever, whatever reason, there are a range of reasons. So it's like, yeah, the trajectory we're on, even though birth rates are declining, it's not that trajectory. So yeah, I don't know. It really depends. Who knows how the future is going to be? But yeah, I enjoyed it as a film. I'll have to think about it more, but at some point I may do a video on it.
To think about and do and work at during the day for many, many years, perhaps. And this, in a way, is related to another reason, unconsciously, or sometimes very even consciously, because I've heard them say it, oh, I am going to have another child to give my first child a sibling. Oh, I feel so bad for my first child. He's all alone. She's all alone. He or she needs a sibling. It's like they're not creating this new child as a being in its own right. They're creating this new child as a sort of pet for the first child. And what I've seen, interestingly, not infrequently, is it backfires on them. They end up with their first child having a lot of rage, feeling even more rejected and neglected. Wait a second, you told me you were going to give me this sibling for me, and the end result is you're actually paying less attention to me now that there's a baby. Mom is so distracted from paying attention to me. Dad is not paying so much attention to me. Or when I'm angry and I feel angry that you're rejecting me and I take out some of my anger on my little brother or my little sister, because I've observed this many times in families, the parents punish the first child, are angry at him, even spank him sometimes. Don't bother your little sister, don't bother your little brother. So these are all things that I've seen in society. I've seen it in families all over the place. These strange and unfortunate and what I consider to be unhealthy and inappropriate motivations for having children. And part of why I bring it up is because I think in society we don't talk about this enough.
Nice. So that was Daniel Mackler with 9 unhealthy reasons people have children. Yeah, I always enjoy his videos. He does some good stuff. I haven't watched like loads of other of his videos, to be honest. Like, I've only really watched the ones where he talks about this sort of stuff. But cool. So
no, I think
next we're going to watch Tofu Dog's recent video. So if you don't know already, Nina Tofu Dog has already done one of these videos where she speaks to, people in the street about, well, she's got the sign there. You can see it there. There's no good reason to have kids. And she encourages people to go talk to her. And she did one already with this, I think he was a college student. And Nina and I actually reacted to that together on a live stream. So if I remember, I'll link that in the description of this live stream so people can see it, but it's on my live tab on my channel. Anyway, so this is the second one she's done, and this time she's speaking to a pastor. So yeah, this one will be interesting. So I did actually watch this when it first came out, but I haven't watched it since. So it's kind of fresh again because I don't remember everything they talk about. But I remember him being like, he doesn't agree, but he's like very open to talking about pretty much everything. So yeah, let's watch.
I think your position is the natural position if someone is not a Christian.
They've been pro-natalist. The first person I spoke to, she was sort of questioning whether she wanted kids or not. You know, she was kind of taking it from a perspective of, she feels lonely. She's not in her home country. So she was kind of thinking if it was something that she wanted to do or not. So we had a really good conversation about that. And then maybe it's just 2. You're the third. So the second person I talked to did want children, and but the arguments fell apart pretty quickly when we established that they're like a little bit selfish. So that's kind of...
Oh, like the self-fulfillment of having children.
Yeah, so there's self-fulfillment and, you can't really guarantee a certain quality of life when you create a person. And So just kind of questioning the ethics from that perspective. What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to have kids.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, I mean, so I'm obviously, right, like a Christian, and I think that there's a creative mandate.
Sorry if the video is quiet. So the audio is not massively loud on the original video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn myself down. And so the video should be louder relative to me. So you can turn the volume of your stream up, because I can't increase the volume of the original video. Well, I could, but I'd have to put it through an editor and stuff, and I can't do that right now. So yeah, I should be quieter now relative to the video. So if you increase the sound on your end, then hopefully it'll be okay.
Okay.
For us established in the scriptures, I think that humanity has been given tremendous resources and an incredible call to stewardship, right? It's not necessarily the create and subdue sort of like, what's the word? Manifest destiny sort of idea.
Yeah.
But like, it is humankind's job to care for one another and creation.
That seems kind of weird to me, because it's like, okay, so if there is, so obviously I'm going to speak as if there is a God, because he believes there's a God, right? So God exists and God created us to be stewards. Now, I thought he was going to mean of like nature and of animals, but it seems like he means like stewards of each other, like taking care of each other. But like that to me doesn't make sense, because it's like the only reason we exist to take care of each other is because God created us. So it's like God created us, then, put us in a set of conditions, or created us knowing we'll end up in a set of conditions where we will have trials and tribulations to have to support each other through, right? And obviously, we all know the world we live in, those trials and tribulations are pretty fucking severe for a lot of people, let alone, animals who have insanely bad lives. So that to me, it's kind of weird, like, why would God even just create it all in the first place, That seems like very strange to me. But then maybe he would say, well, I don't know ultimately why God created all of this, and I can't speak for God, but I know that now the situation we're in, and the best course of action is to carry on, having children, so that we can, because there are people who exist now who need support, so we should, have children so that they can be the stewards of the situation that is already here now. So that to me doesn't seem like a good reason, right? So one, like, just like, that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. What if you create them and it's just like, well, they exist now, they've got their own trials and tribulations. What if they just want to focus on themselves, which is completely, like, valid? They didn't choose to be here. So it's like, they've been given all these problems now, so it's fine for them to, want to look after themselves, not screw anyone else over, but just look after themselves, right? So why would you put that burden on this child? Second of all, you can do the stewarding. Now, from memory, from watching this video, he does seem like quite like a kind and legit guy. I might be misremembering, but I think he came across like that. So he probably does a lot of good stuff, Like, I'm not a fan of religion, but there are some people who religion for them makes them a very caring and decent person. It can come with a lot of bigotry and a lot of intolerance, but he seems like a pretty decent, guy. So I'm sure he does stuff that he would see as stewardship. So you can do it yourself, continue doing that, encourage others who already exist and will exist to do that. You don't have to create more people to do that. But it's also like, if you create someone else, yes, you're creating another person who could then play into stewardship, right? But not necessarily. But you're also creating someone who definitely will need stewarding, right? Because it's not guaranteed that everyone is going to go out of their way to help others. But it is true that everyone at some point is going to need help, or they're going to cause others to be in a shit situation where they need help. So, for example, if he has a kid and that kid like eats animals, they're going to be screwing over a load of animals that then other people are going to need to do the whole stewardship thing and help. Do you get what I mean? So it does. And obviously, we haven't got onto this yet. Maybe they'll get onto the topic of hell. I can't remember. But it's like you're also creating someone who in the Christian worldview could end up in hell, which is, I mean, in my eyes, that is an awful thing to do. Like if you're an atheist, from your point of view, all you're doing is exposing someone to the risks and harms in this mortal life, right? But if you're a Christian, you're also doing that. But it's also like if they don't, live in the correct way, they could end up in hell. So that seems like an even more significant reason not to have a kid, to be honest. Wise man says tomorrow is their birthday. My condolences. No, I'm joking. I hope your birthday goes well. Well, I'm not joking as well. My condolences, but I also hope your birthday goes well. Samba is in the chat as well. Samba's new. And Oluwale. And I think you're the only two new people, and Tim also, who said about the audio. So welcome everyone who's new.
We have, I think humanity's been gifted with incredible gifts of intellect. Not that we use it.
That's a good point.
But we should.
Right.
And Dylan's in the chat. Welcome, Dylan.
But we don't. And there's consequences.
And there are severe consequences, right? But as such, I think we're also the only ones that are necessarily equipped to handle and work through.
That's true. That's true. That's actually a good point that Nina made there, which is that, and I've done this a lot in the past, is that it's easy to talk in abstracts, and I probably do this all the time still. It's easy to talk in abstracts about, like, you're in your mind and you're thinking about, what ethical position should I take? And you're kind of thinking in abstracts and like idealized states of like, how do I want the future to go and blah, 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 blah. And he's saying like, oh, I want to have, it's good to reproduce because stewardship, etc., etc. And Nina's like, okay, those may be good ideals and stuff, and that's how you want the future to go. But what is reality actually like, right? And she makes the point of like, well, are they actually being stewards? Because let's be honest, most people just through existing make the world a much like worse place, right? Like the amount of animals they abuse and all of this sort of stuff. Yeah, so it's like, are they actually like in their lives manifesting this actual, or playing out this stewardship? And people do that all the time, and I've done it as well. You think about like, oh, how would I want the future to go, and then I've got to form my ideals around that, and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, actually, no. There's a quote that one of my friends uses all the time. By someone else, but it's like, in theory there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there's a massive difference, if that makes sense. Yeah, but anyway, let's continue.
Those consequences.
So part of where I'm coming from is those consequences, we uniquely experience them because we have that sort of higher intellect, so we experience like these consequences in a way that no other species does.
Sure.
So I think that the question for me becomes, why would we create another person to experience what we recognize are very extreme consequences in a lot of cases?
The minimization of suffering.
Essentially, from some perspectives, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, see, and like, I am sympathetic to that idea. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it's like, where do you draw that line?
What do you mean?
Well, like if we're called to minimize suffering, the quickest way out then is like medical assistance in dying.
Okay. Well, I'd like to actually draw a distinction between life that already exists and life that has not been created yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I actually don't call for suicide, and
that's great.
People who do, right?
Yeah.
People who don't, who also share my view, typically don't, because like I said, there's a really significant distinction between making a choice to create another person who will exist and the people who already exist being allowed. You know, we have an interest in continuing. Suicide is a really terrible thing to like get to the point where you want to do it and then also to execute it. We also have loved ones who, you know, we probably don't want to harm through that as well. So that's the line there, is it's like people who exist is one thing and people who don't exist yet, who we have the choice of whether to create or not, is more the realm where I'm interested in considering.
Yeah, I thought she handled that really well. That was like a really good and like succinct answer. She was just like bam, 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 bam. That was good.
What about like your own end of life? Who cares for you?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say to that is that's, for me, not a good reason to create an entire another person. We have no guarantee that they're going to want to stick around. We see parent and child relationships.
Yes, it's essentially advocating for, I mean, it's not slave labor in terms of like, you know, you don't own the other person, although maybe in some legal systems parents do technically own their children, but it's like, you know, you're essentially advocating for creating people so that they can be your servant to some degree, right? You know, they can like serve you in old age.
Falling apart all the time. So I would actually say that this is more of a question of building a structure which supports elderly people better. And you mentioned like doctor-assisted suicide. I think that that is something that should be more widely available when people sort of reach an age, if they want to, so that you're not kind of in the space where you're struggling. So I actually think that that's very closely linked with the view.
Yeah, see, and I guess, right, like the classical sort of Christian perspective is that suffering, right, so for Christians, right, it's Easter.
Yes.
We just finished Easter. So for us, we worship the God that suffered, died, and was buried, and then rose. And so for us, our suffering has like an embodied meaning to it. And that there is real living in suffering, and actually suffering on behalf of one another.
Welcome to the chat, Mud Transhumanist and Bars as well.
Okay.
Is where the juice actually happens in life.
Okay.
If you'll allow me a casual way of saying that, right?
Yeah.
But like, I mean, even this conversation here, right? Like, presumably you have good things to do with your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Class, banking, whatever.
Banking.
Yeah, I don't know.
Banking was a weird example.
Okay. All right.
Planning for retirement.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
You mean like good things that I should be doing, or like things that I enjoy doing?
Things that you enjoy doing, and things that you should be doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Not that this is. I think people need to talk more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As do I, right? Like I got like a full-time job.
Yeah.
2 kids. My wife and her son actually walked by earlier with you.
Oh.
And she was like, "Oh, you gotta go talk to this guy."
That's funny. I'm glad she sent me my way.
Yeah, but it's precisely because we as a society are unwilling to forfeit for one another
Okay.
that things are so bad.
All right. So you think like with a greater degree of self-sacrifice,
That's a weird thing to say though in this context, because in this context you're talking about having children, right? And he's saying like it's a worse thing for society that people don't want to sacrifice for each other. And in this context, wouldn't that mean, well, it's bad that children wouldn't want to take on the suffering as a sacrifice so that other people can benefit from their being brought into existence? Maybe that isn't what he meant. Maybe I'm being uncharitable. I don't know. But it's like there's a difference between, like, sacrifice is something you take on yourself and it can have a lot of virtue, right? But that's not the same as a sacrifice being imposed on you, right? So, for example, there's a difference between, like, I don't know, someone birthing a child soldier that's then forced to, you know, join the army when they get of age and fight in a war. There's a difference between that and an adult who already exists and who can voluntarily elect to fight in that war, you know, if they think it's a just war, right? Like, these are very different things. But maybe he didn't mean that. Maybe I'm being uncharitable. I don't know. But Robert, welcome to the chat.
could improve everybody's quality of life.
Yeah, not without limit.
Right. So I would ask, like, but what is the motivating factor, right? So it's like, if we presume that we can do all those same things, like we can suffer for each other, we can work to make everybody's lives better, what is the reasoning for saying, all right, at this point, I'm going to choose to bring another person into this, even though you're gambling with somebody else's life?
Yeah.
So we were talking about my life is good. My life is good for now, is what I always like to say. Terrible things could happen tomorrow.
For sure.
And I'm wondering what's sort of the thought process there for you.
Yeah, so for us, right, in Christian theism, again, right, Christianity in general, it does come down to the creative ethic of our God, right?
Okay.
And the example set for us by Jesus, who is our King.
Okay.
And that, he actually came knowing his will.
Okay.
The will for him was to suffer, die, and be buried. Like that's the plan from the get-go. Genesis 3, man falls. Genesis 3, man is called and told that there'll be this Redeemer that will suffer.
Okay, yeah.
And so there's this sort of type and pattern that's set into creation. So we follow in that ethic.
Okay.
And I would say that, like, if you look at, like, the great stories of human flourishing that have happened in the world, it's because of someone else's sacrifice for you.
And so you're comfortable, like, creating a person and just condemning them, for lack of a better word, to suffering?
Yeah, I would not say condemning them.
Okay.
I would say that there's real value and meaning found in suffering.
Okay, what if they just...
Thing is, it's very easy to say that, right, when you've been able to do that, or you're in a situation where you're not suffering now. But there's a lot of suffering which is just meaningless and doesn't serve a purpose, and is not elected, right? I can see what he means by, like, when you exist, people can grow when they've gone through suffering, especially if it's suffering they've taken on themselves, or maybe not even especially, maybe it's either way, right? But it's like, first of all, not everyone has the cognitive capacity to do that. Like, people who are mentally impaired won't have the cognitive capacity to find meaning in the suffering. Even if someone does have the cognitive capacity to do that, it's not guaranteed. Like, some people are just destroyed by certain experiences, and there's a lot of time after that where they just have to recover from that through rehabilitation, therapy, whatever, and they don't ultimately find a meaning in it. And then there's also things that just don't seem to have any clear purpose. Like, how does a child who is born ends up in a pediatric cancer ward, and then dies? Where's the meaning in that suffering, right? Like, what meaning has come from that? And then if we expand that out to not just humans, although I know here they're talking about human procreation, but it's like, animals aren't going to find meaning in their suffering, especially not on a factory farm or somewhere like that. Do you get what I mean? Or like some deer being eaten alive, on the grasslands or whatever. It's like, there's not going to be any meaning that comes from that. In fact, obviously you can't measure suffering really in any real way, but I would hazard a guess to say that the vast majority of suffering is completely meaningless and doesn't bring this.
We bring children in this
meaning.
world, and we raise them to be warriors against evil.
Warrior children. Wise Man again, thank you so much for the support and the third super chat this stream. What a legend. So Wise Man has said, I know this is cliche, but I suggested yoga and meditation, which is proven to increase. I'm not sure if you mean that you suggested yoga and meditation in this chat, because I haven't seen every message. But yeah, so Wise Man says, I know this is cliche, but I suggested yoga and meditation, which is proven to increase compassion, which makes it easier to be antinatalist. I went through severe trauma to be empathetic, but this is easier. Yeah, so it's like, people who have gone through suffering themselves can find it easier to empathize and sympathize with the suffering of others. That's not always true, but it is true for some. Other people, if they're the victim of something, it can actually sometimes go to their head. Like, if someone's the victim of something, they can often feel entitled to them being the ones that should have the sympathy, and actually then don't hand out sympathy to others, right? Or it blinds them from, like, if they've gone through some specific form of suffering that another person hasn't, they're like, well, you haven't gone through that suffering, why do you deserve the sympathy? You know, I've been through this suffering, so I should get the sympathy. Oh, right, wise man is saying no is a way to live better as an antinatalist. Right, okay, I get what you mean. So yeah, I mean, so meditation, I think, is something that, yeah, everyone should explore. I by no means meditate regularly. In fact, not at all. There was a time when I did, and I did a meditation course at the London Buddhist Centre. I sometimes go there. I was actually maybe planning on going tonight, but I don't know if I'll end up going. But yeah, so meditation, I think, is something that everyone should at least explore. One good one app that I can like recommend, of like, this is not a sponsor or anything like that, but one app that I've used and you can get for free if you request it is the Waking Up app, which is by Sam Harris. I found that really useful. It's got loads of stuff on there, like loads of really good stuff. And it's got a lot of guided meditations. And there's like an intro course that brings you in to meditate. And I know meditation is often tied up with a lot of like woo-woo spiritual stuff. But the Waking Up app is essentially like a secular pursuit of meditation and mindfulness and living an examined life. So yeah, I can recommend that app. I found that like really useful. And you can, it does have a lot, like it's quite expensive, but it's very high quality, and you can request a free membership and they will give it to you. So you can get it for free. Yeah, so meditation, I think everyone should explore. And then yoga. So yoga is like this, I always go back and forth on, like, so yoga, anytime I've tried it, it has been very good. Like, you don't realize how strong you need to be until you do it. But yeah, yoga, I think, is a good thing for people to try out as well if they're into that sort of thing. To be honest, everyone should have like some physical pursuit that they, you know, they sort of, yeah, that they pursue. Like, we're physical beings and we have physical bodies, and we do need to keep ourselves healthy. And yeah, life is just, you know, generally like it flows better if you are in a good physical shape. So yeah, I would agree. Yeah, yoga is one way to do that. And actually, yoga requires flexibility, and actually, and like until you lose your flexibility, you don't appreciate it, you know. Like, flexibility is really good. Like, I'm somewhat flexible, but like not that flexible. So yeah, no, good recommendations, wise man. I don't know if I'd say they're cliche, but yeah, no, they yeah, it was good. I don't think there are any other new people. Heartborn's in the chat. Welcome, Heartborn. I know I can't remember if you sent me a message or I sent you a message, but if I need to reply to you, I will try and do that very soon. But maybe I did reply to you. I can't remember. But anyway, good to see you in the chat. And yeah, because I know you've been very busy recently. Anyway, so let's continue with the video.
Well, I think then it would be an error.
You think it would, and what would you do? Like, let's say...
Oh, I would love them, and I would suffer for them.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is very real. You know, I have two sons, and you know, we've talked about adoption.
Yeah.
Right. And it is like in who we are as parents, as citizens, that we should care for them regardless of what they do. Right? Like, I go to the jails, the funeral home directors text me, like, I'm in this thing. And so if my boys reject that, well, then I hope they'll come around.
Yeah, I think that it's tricky when it comes to, I'm not a religious person, so it's kind of tricky, right? It's like you've got your own sort of perspective, and it's kind of hard to like bridge that gap sometimes because you have this belief that that is so important to you, and
they are expensive.
And I think
that's nice that he's like in good humor about it,
you sound like an excellent parent, of course. I think that adoption is something that more people really need to consider also.
Yeah.
But I also think that just in general, I think that the gambling with somebody else's life, I mean, you're sort of
Sure.
Your explanation with that is that you hope that your children will view their suffering for others as something that has made their life worth living.
Well, I would say it's worth living
no matter what.
No matter what.
What about
That's, I mean, again, I think that's one of those things where it's like that's a very easy thing to say, life is living no matter what, but it's like life can get very shit, especially if you have a chronic illness of some sort or some sort of condition, so that's an easy thing to say, but it's not that simple. I don't think life is definitely not worth continuing in all cases. There are some cases where life is just shit for some people, or there are some situations that call for it. So easy thing to say, but I don't think that's true.
People who commit suicide.
I would say that they have limited the opportunities available to them.
Okay.
But what if all of the opportunities, like there's a difference between all the things that can possibly be an opportunity to you in the world and the ones that are likely to be opportunities, right? If you're in, the advanced stages of some illness and you're just going downhill, there's no known cure, and like it's awful, to say that you're limiting the opportunities, well, it's like if you elect for assisted dying at that point, what opportunities are you foregoing? Like the opportunity to just continue suffering and like having, your loved ones watch you go through that and you go through that. And it's just like, what? Okay, you can characterize that as an opportunity, but it's a shit one in my eyes. And I don't think many people would want to take up that opportunity. So again, I think it's like an easy thing to say, but in practice,
And okay. I think that you think it's like a choice that they make? I mean, it's clearly a choice that they make, but some like a certain number of people simply commit suicide, and that's.
I think people come to the conclusion that that's the only choice that they have.
Okay, and so.
Often.
I
don't. Yeah.
Okay.
But I've never been in that spot, so I can't necessarily speak for them.
Yeah. No, I understand. That's a tricky one, but I do think it's an interesting path to consider because some people just come to the conclusion that it's not worth living at some point.
I think it's pretty challenging to hold like a fully antinatalist position that chooses to minimize suffering and ultimately not also hold a very strong advocacy for suicide.
I disagree with that. Do you mean advocacy for suicide because it will minimize suffering if we're taking it from like a utilitarian sort of more perspective? So I disagree that antinatalism first of all entails utilitarianism or that like suffering minimization perspective, because it's again that distinction between those who don't exist and those who do exist is really like the crux of this whole thing. And like I said, I believe that the people who already exist have like a certain right to continue out their lives. We're all here against our will, and I don't think that telling anybody to commit suicide is going to be useful. It's not even something that I want for them. The conversation that I'm more interested in having when it comes to like the quote harm reduction is the angle of perpetuating that with this very specific choice that we have for like basically the first time in human history, which is whether to procreate or not.
So, end goal. What's this look like for you?
For me, as an individual, or for the philosophy?
Yeah, for the philosophy.
So eventually, I mean, it's a long way in the future, certainly. So eventually, humanity would go extinct.
Okay.
which I think is sort of morally neutral.
Okay. That's interesting. You ever taken conservation biology?
I'm not.
Oh, you should take conservation biology. It's fascinating because it's like really honest about that, the fact that it's a values-based science.
Okay, interesting.
And one of their tenets is that they will always seek to preserve diversity.
Yeah, John's just put in the chat saying it's smart to get Christians and other religious people to talk about hell, veganism, and animal suffering. Yeah, it's true. It's like I know that I don't know if any of you watching have seen or know the YouTuber Rationality Rules, but he recently did a video about the problem of evil argument, and there's like a new. I don't know if it's like completely new, but it's like become slightly more popular recently with people like Rationality Rules or Cosmic Skeptic using it of like wild animal suffering, because obviously with the problem of evil, a lot of Christian or just religious people will say, well, yeah, but it's as a result of us having free will and we can go from it and blah blah blah. God sent suffering here to be a test, but then it's like, well, wild animals suffer much more than humans. Like, they do not seem to be being put through a test, and they don't seem to have like free will, or at least in the religious concept, they only think that humans have free will. So it's like, yeah, that kind of knocks down those two rebuttals, and I think it makes a much stronger like problem of evil case. But yeah, so it goes to what you're saying, John, about bringing up animal suffering. And then with hell, yeah, I mean, they may get onto it, but I would be surprised if they don't get onto it, because I think it's at least something like worth bringing up. Like just asking someone, do you believe in a concept of hell? Can you describe what that looks like? And how do you think that changes the ethics of reproduction? Because to me, it makes the case for not reproducing a lot stronger. So yeah, I always think it's a good thing to bring up.
I disagree with.
Yeah, me too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this isn't. Yeah. So,
sort of morally neutral.
Okay, that's interesting. You ever taken conservation biology?
I'm not.
Oh, you should take conservation biology. It's fascinating because it's like really honest about that, the fact that it's a values-based science.
Okay.
And one of their tenets is that they will always seek to preserve diversity.
I disagree with.
Yeah, me too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this isn't. Yeah. So this is an interesting point, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, they value species diversity, and I think that that's just not plausible.
Yeah, I think it's not plausible, and I also prefer to take the perspective of the individual.
Yeah, it's a misfire. Like focusing on, so species diversity can have instrumental value, but like valuing it in and of itself to me seems like a complete misfire, because the species and the diversity of species we have is not like the morally relevant thing, right? It's the individual. Like the individuals can suffer, be harmed, etc. A species can't suffer or be harmed in some way, or if someone uses the term a species is suffering or being harmed, that's sort of proxy language for the individuals in the species are being harmed, or a lot of them are being killed or something like that.
Like whether a species exists or not is really sort of a moot point in my opinion, especially for humans. Like, if a species goes extinct, that there's nothing there to be sort of upset. Like they don't care, right?
Yeah. So, what is like humanity's place in like the hierarchy of the world? Is there order to this world?
I think that depends on your perspective, and I don't know that my perspective. I don't know that my thoughts on that really weigh into my antinatalist perspective. I mean, probably, but not sort of into the bigger arguments that I tend to focus on.
Are you like a vegetarian?
I'm a vegan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, so you got some ethics on this thing.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
You
Would you like to see the other side of my sign?
You should be vegan. I love it. Yeah. It is at El Pastor Tacos.
Oh.
Taco Tuesday.
Carlita's has plant-based tacos that are out of this world.
I don't know who Carlita is.
Oh, it's right in there. It's one of the little restaurants. So good. Genuinely. I love those.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm going to change your mind. But yeah, I mean, for me, for Christians...
I think it's interesting, like, because I've found this before, that like sometimes when you're talking to someone about one issue, you know, they kind of think, oh, you know, this is just like their pet issue. Like, are they going to be inconsistent? You know, blah, 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 blah. And often it really pisses people off when, for example, it really pisses vegans off when like someone cares about loads of other social justice issues, but then they're not vegan for whatever reason, right? And that really pisses them off because it's seen as like hypocrisy or something like that, or like they, you know, they don't really have any sort of like substance to their foundations of their ethics, right? And I think like people often, even if they don't agree with you, and this seems like a case here, and I've had this as well when I've spoken to people on the street, that they sort of find it interesting of like, oh, okay, you think this thing, and then they ask, well, what do you think about that topic and that topic and that topic? And they can, I found that people really appreciate when you have like opinions on other topics that all sort of coalesce around some sort of central concern, and you've really thought about how that impacts multiple topics. And yeah, I've had this with like antinatalism and veganism before, right? And it seems like Nina just got this here, where he asks like, you know, do you have this other concern here? And she said, I can actually one up you. I'm not vegetarian, I'm vegan, right? And he seemed to really appreciate that, because it's like, oh, okay, she's not just got one issue that she sort of latched onto and this is like her pet issue or whatever. She's actually really thought deeply about ethics and thought, how do these issues interact and interconnect, and what do I actually really care about, and what does that mean for these different issues, right? Yeah, and it's quite nice to see someone like appreciate that, because like a lot of this stuff does take a lot of like, you know, thought and stuff, and it's like you really got to think about, yeah, how can I live it, or what are my values, and what does that mean for how I should act in the world and stuff. And you know, it's not, I also find that people also appreciate, even if they don't agree with you, they appreciate the fact that you're not just like talking the talk, you're walking the walk, you know, like I don't think we should really, you know, like as a community be like pressuring people into sterilization or having that as a standard or something. Like I think it's, you know, it should be encouraged, it's a good thing, and should be facilitated for people who opt that. But I've often found that if people if people find out that you've got a vasectomy or something like that, they're like, oh, okay, this, you know, this guy actually like has, you know, principles, or this person actually has like principles, you know, they're standing by it, they've actually, you know, walked the walk. And people find that with veganism as well, you know, it's like you care about the plight of animals, you don't want to contribute to that, and you're actually walking the walk. And I've found that people often like really respect that as well, because a lot of people out there hold belief, like it's very popular nowadays to like basically like virtue signal, like hold popular beliefs that aren't really going to get you in any shit, but not actually do anything about it. Like it's so common for people to hold ethical beliefs that are easy to hold, that don't demand anything of you, right? Like if I take my situation in London, like being against racism, that doesn't cost you anything in this country, right? Like that's so easy to, like, just saying I'm against racism, it's just like the water you swim in, right? Like it doesn't carry any sacrifice, right? In modern day London, for example. But saying that you care about the plight of animals and you know you want to help them, etc., like that still does carry social cost, and you've got to change your behaviors, right? Same with like if you're antinatalist. I mean, being antinatalist doesn't necessarily mean that you know, obviously you don't have to get sterilized, but if you do, that is seen as like, you know, backing yourself or walking the walk. At least it's perceived in that way by some people. Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought, but I think people get what I mean. And I've often found that people sort of like appreciate when you've linked things up and stuff, which this guy seemed to do.
You know, humanity has been put on this earth with intrinsic value of worth. Right? God has smiled upon us. Mm-hmm. And as such, then, it is incumbent.
Yeah, Anonymous, welcome to the chat, first of all, but also, yeah, the volume is low in the original video, so you'll just have to put your volume up your end.
Upon humans to look out for, nurture, cherish, and ultimately, yes, reduce harm.
Okay.
And suffering. But we also have this sort of telos, this understanding that life's not going to get ultimately better.
Yeah.
We believe in that Jesus will come back.
Okay.
Right, and have this new heavens and new earth, right, where, ultimately, those who believe in him will live without tear or sorrow.
Right, okay.
And that's also like deeply tied to our sense of justice, right? Because without that, I think you end up trying to exact justice in this life, and you should.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be honest, we're not super great at it.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. What's your seat on justice? Like, how do you handle like just these injustices that you can't correct?
Like, what's an example?
I don't know. Like, it's a big phrase, right? But like systemic racism.
Okay.
There's a lot there in that word, and so you use whatever interpretation you want.
Hey, Tofu Dog's in the chat, who is, if anyone doesn't know, the person who we're watching right now. So hey Nina, and she says dropping in to say hi. We'll watch back later. Sorry for the low volume. I'll pay more attention to that in the next one. Yeah, no worries. I mean, to be honest, when you're watching the original video, it's not an issue. You can just put up the volume. I think it's because it's coming through my stream, and like balancing it with my voice. But anyway, no, like great work on the video. Hope you're doing well, and yeah, thank you for making the video.
Okay.
Oh, and also good job on the conversation as well.
So, like, the way that I sort of see it is that it was created by humans.
Yeah.
And I think that if we stem it right at the source,
then it goes away.
It goes away. And so I think that if we remove the source of all of these bad things, that is a huge...
Oh, and also, since Nina's in the chat, if everyone just clicks on her name, it will take you to her channel and you can subscribe as well. So go and support Nina.
Reason why I also think, it's ethically very interesting, because we can choose to end all these things, like child molestation. We can end by simply by not creating...
So are you for the death penalty?
I don't have a very relevant or particularly developed view that I think relates to this. I think that I don't see the relevance necessarily in this case.
Well, so I mean, you just brought up like child molestation.
Yeah.
Right. So like that kid that gets, horrible injustice committed against them.
Yeah.
Right. They don't find the guy or woman, whoever it is.
They don't find them.
They don't find them.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
How does that person live through this world in your sort of schema of justice?
I don't know that I'm understanding what you mean by live through this world.
Like, well,
I think they would just have to, like everyone else, try and find a meaningful way to live their life, and try and find a purpose. Obviously, if something like that has happened to you, it's going to be harder and you're going to have a lot of like stuff to get through. So you are going to have more barriers in your way to living like, a fulfilled life and stuff. But ultimately, like, that's kind of all they can do, right? Like, yeah, it's like, if that like horrible stuff has happened to you, the person hasn't been caught, so you're not getting a sense of justice that way. You've just got to kind of deal with it and try and live your life the best way you can. And if someone has had something like that, particularly, horrible thing happen to them, obviously the people around them should come around them and support them and help them, and, more than they would other people, but support them in the way that they sort of, is in their best interest. Don't swarm them, blah, 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 the thing. But, ultimately, it's the same as everyone else. You've just got to try and find a way to live a meaningful life. But yeah, like, that is a really shit thing to happen to someone, especially if the person gets away.
They see justice working for them, or do they just see the world as always inherently unjust and that, like,
The child, you mean?
Yeah, the victim.
The victim.
Or is it just like in 2,000 years they're all going to be dead anyways, and like they're going to get their comeuppance?
You mean the perpetrator?
Yeah.
So I don't. So I'm having a hard time relating this to what we were talking about earlier. So in regards to my philosophy, I think that we should look towards the future. Like that, obviously, that injustice has been committed. So the way to go about that would be to make sure that it can't ever happen again by preventing a child. So when I choose to not have a child, part of that is...
Yeah, I think it's good what Nina's doing, like trying to get it back to the original conversation, because I know like a lot of, I've had it a lot of times when people kind of go off on tangents, and it's like, it can be an interesting question, but like ultimately it's not what you were there to talk about, especially if you're trying to record a video. It's like, you know, people have clicked on the video to hear a conversation about antinatalism, you know, not about, you know, how does someone who, you know, has been molested, how are they going to essentially like, you know, try and lead their life from that point onwards. You know, that's an important thing to consider and like talk about in certain contexts, but it's like, you've got to kind of try and get it back on the topic.
Them. So when it comes to the people who've already had the injustices committed against them, I don't have a better answer than the currently existing justice system, unfortunately. But I think it's because of that, right? Like, because I can't imagine what it would be like to live with something like that, that I think it's bad enough that we can really consider...
Is the connection bad for people? Because I heard the volume skipping, although it's now saying that the connection is excellent again. So let's just continue. Hopefully
the consequences and the gravity that the consequence of creating somebody who could both be the victim or the perpetrator in that situation really brings.
But isn't there also the potential that they could be healing?
There certainly could be, but my question is, should we put that on somebody who never asked for it? And
and it's like they're healing from a tragedy that never had to happen in the first place, right?
Oh, I think we absolutely should.
Okay, but we gamble with them, right? So it's like, what if they don't want to be a healer? Coming back to where we were earlier, I don't think that it's my place to create somebody and then put expectations on them.
Yeah. Oh, see, that's where you and I think, are just at the crux of the issue is just that, like, I think that humans inherently have duties.
I agree.
What did he say? Humans inherently have... Did he say duties?
I think that humans inherently have duties.
Yeah, duties.
I agree.
I agree. Like, once someone is here, we exist in a complex web where we're constantly interacting with and impacting others, and they're morally relevant just as we are. So there are certain duties that we need to attend to, just because of the reality of what we're in, right? And we've got to take each other into consideration. But just because once we're here we have certain duties doesn't mean that we should bring more people into this complex web of interactions so that they then have duties.
Ideally, right, that people would do their best to help each other, to not do harm however they can. But I think that the reality of the situation is that isn't the case. And that...
Yeah, that's true as well. Is like, the reality of the situation is a lot of people aren't tending to their duties in a responsible way or at all.
That is really optimistic, and I think that there's a lot of harm that can come as a result of that optimism.
Wow. Yeah, see it. That's my son.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, this leads me on to something else. So what Nina just said there is that a lot of harm can come from that optimism, right? And I think that is so true. And actually, there was one thing I was going to show you guys earlier, give you a little sneak peek to something, which I forgot, but I will show you now. So I have been extremely busy recently and also been going through a period of a lack of motivation, but I am working on stuff. And welcome to the chat, Vegan Equilibrium. I've been going through a period of lack of motivation, so I haven't been as motivated, but I've got a video coming out tomorrow. and I will show you the thumbnail as a little sneak peek. That is the thumbnail for the video coming out tomorrow, so it's a spicy one. So yeah, this lady, Lena Norms, she's like, she's a YouTuber. She doesn't usually talk about like the ethics of procreation and stuff, but she made a video on whether it's acceptable to have a child in a climate crisis. And yeah, I think she said some pretty ridiculous stuff, and that's what the video is going to be about tomorrow. But the reason I'm bringing this up now is because, like Nina mentioned, this optimism that people have can lead to a lot of harm, right? The saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's also paved with optimism. And yeah, this woman, Lena Norms, and if you watch her video, it's already available online. You'll see the optimism I'm talking about. But in the video that's coming out tomorrow, and I don't know if I did it in too harsh a way. I'm not really sure. I'll have to see how people react. But at the end of the video, she signs off with a sort of note and message of optimism. And it just really annoyed me, because it was just like, why are you trying to feed people a narrative that will, like, so often, like, essentially blinds them or makes them disregard or turn away from the very real harms that they can facilitate through their actions, right? So what I did is took her message of optimism at the end, put it into my video, and layered on top of it images of the very real harms that come from spreading that form of optimism. Which I don't know if it was too harsh. I don't know if that was a bit of an underhanded move. I do, put a caveat before I do it at the end, but you'll see what I mean when the video comes out tomorrow. Yeah, it was just like, Nina just reminded me, because it's just like, yeah, that optimism, whilst it sounds good and it sounds appealing, it can ultimately be very harmful. But yeah, anyway, so that video comes out tomorrow, so I hope people are looking forward to that. Bovine Secretions has also just done a super chat. So thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. And also, I think this is your first super chat. Yeah, because it's got a little, I don't know if you guys can see this. Yeah, you guys will be able to see this in the chat, because I'm looking at the normal chat. It's Bovine. Did I just say Bovine Secretions? Please someone tell me in the chat if I just said Bovine Secretions. Oh, shit. I meant Bovine Blue Stocking. I don't know why I was thinking Bovine Secretions. Yeah, that's so funny. That's so weird. Anyway, I mean, I don't consume bovine secretions, so there's nothing weird going on. But yeah, anyway, so not bovine secretions, bovine blue stocking. Thank you so much for the support. We bring children in this world,
and we raise them to be warriors against evil.
I don't know if you guys will hear that, but the evil warriors guy. Anyway, so Bovine says, I haven't seen any of these videos yet, so it's great to watch them with you. So you mean you haven't seen any of these originally? Yeah. There's some good videos, and there's some good ones coming up as well. Even if your live stream is keeping me from reading Baguetting. Yes. So yeah, Bovine Blue Stocking is also, I keep wanting to say Bovine Secretions. That's so weird. Yeah, is also reading Baguetting. I think I'm ahead of you in, not that it's a competition, but I think I'm ahead of you in where I am. I'm pretty much nearly finished it. And yeah, I did reach out for an interview to the author. I didn't get one. Maybe it will change, and maybe the circumstances will change in the future. I hope to get one at some point, but yeah. So yeah, I didn't get an interview with her, but yeah. To be honest, like, I recommend it as a book. I think I've said it before, but I'll say it again because some people might not have heard me say it. It's one of those books where it's easily accessible. It's very accessible. Anyone can read it. It's not like an academic book. It's not something like Better Never to Have Been, where you kind of need to be a bit aware of, like, philosophy or be in that mindset and stuff. It's a very easy read. She draws the author upon, like, loads of different, like, things, loads of different stories and stuff to keep it interesting and stuff. And she explores like a wide variety of things all around the ethics of procreation. So I think it's a good book to get someone who is like, if you have a friend who's just like a lay person on this topic, they're not like heavily into philosophy or anything, but they're considering having a child, and they maybe just want like an introduction to like, you know, the ethics of procreation. This is a very good book to get them. Like, it would be good like as a Christmas gift or something like that. Or just if you have friends who are open to getting book recommendations and books as gifts, and they're the sort of age where they might be having a kid soon, this could be the book you get them, right? So yeah, I'd recommend it. Yeah. Yes. Bovine Blue Stocking says Secretions is my middle name. Yeah, cool. So let's continue.
Look at that sweet boy up on a rock.
Very cute.
Hi, Jacoby. He yelled at me. Yeah, see, we, do you gamble?
I do not.
Well, there's some odds that are better than others.
Nina's just said that there are subtitles. So, is there a way to reduce the size? No. Okay, well, there's nothing else coming up on screen. So, yeah. So, I've put those on now. So, people will be able to read the subtitles as well. Cheers for that, Nina. Yeah, hopefully it's not like that quiet that people can't hear it at all, but I'll leave these up just so people have the option.
Definitely.
And for us, I like these odds.
I could understand that perspective.
Hey, Baba. Yeah, I just think...
and I will move myself so I'm not blocking them.
Right, like I believe in a God that is good. And I believe that this isn't a gamble. Like that he will work things out for the good of those who love him.
What about people who like die in a genocide?
Yeah. This is a great question, right? This is the justice question.
This is probably your bread and butter, right?
Yeah, no, this is the justice question, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you enact justice in that situation? Well, one, I think God has given us the church, right? And the church should be like the most like straightforward. I mean, I've got a member of my congregation right now that's in the middle of the Israeli and Palestinian conflict, right? She's married to a Palestinian. She was born in Bethlehem. Like this whole, like, man, what a juice. She's Christian. He's Muslim. Tough.
Yeah.
And we, like, I encourage her and strive with her to work towards justice and peace and resolution of that conflict. And I know that, like, there is present tense comfort and peace for her. Because she knows at the end of the day, the Almighty Creator will work this all out somehow.
Welcome to the chat, JE.
Okay.
Right? He can, and he's so powerful, they can even rewrite stories that are just bad. Right, flat out 100% bad. He can rewrite them in such a way that they are good for those who love him.
Okay.
And so for those that are sufferers of genocide, I don't know how it works.
Okay.
I don't get the juice.
All right. You just believe.
I just have to make that leap of faith and then try to enact it.
Okay.
On this side.
And enacting it to you looks like being a good person, like doing as much good as you can.
Yeah, doing as much good as you can. Being selfless, having conversations.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? It really looks like doing what is before you.
Okay. I have a question. It's not on this topic, but I am curious. So, the texts that you reference were written before we had explicit, for lack of a better word, like dominion over procreation.
Sure.
And I wonder if you think that, what you think of that, right? Because it was obviously not written when we had a choice. So I wonder if it's maybe written in a way to compensate or not.
Oh, sure.
To like.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be here no matter what.
Because we didn't have the technology.
Exactly. We didn't have the technology. We didn't have the choice. And I
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
wonder if some of that might be different now that we have the choice.
Oh yeah. See, this is where it gets super weird. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
I am one of those guys that's like really pro-life.
Okay.
Right. Like
Alright.
I think that we should be careful with male sperm.
Agreed.
That's funny. So does he kind of mean that in the way of like he thinks, you know, like really pro-life as in like we should be actively, you know, working towards bringing people into existence? Well, yeah, he already said that. He thinks childbirth is good. Rather, because obviously pro-life often means, you know, pro-life on the abortion topic. But yeah, no, that's funny.
I think we should be careful. Like, I think he goes to my church. He's trying to make eye contact. He's like, oh, Pastor Matt. No, I think I think women having periods is hard.
Definitely.
Right, and I think we should care for them in that way. Like, and those are potential lives that are going.
They sure are.
And like,
God, that to me is crazy. Like to view like the menstrual cycle as like, you know, lives lost. That's yeah, it's a very very different worldview.
that's hard, and I don't pretend to necessarily answer like you gotta have all the babies like every month. You gotta have a right.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy.
Okay.
But I do think that we have to be much more careful than we have been.
I agree with that, certainly.
I don't think.
So does it? So maybe I don't know if he's not saying this because it will make him sound crazy, but is he maybe trying to get at like he doesn't think like men should masturbate maybe, because then they're like, you know, there'll be like millions of sperm that could have been potential people are being lost and this sort of thing maybe.
Coping mechanisms as much as those texts are realistic and help us understand the intention that God has for life.
Okay. So you think that, back to the sort of the technology thing, so you think their intentions for the life, but even if we take sort of like the female side of the contraceptive out of it, we do have, you know, there's vasectomies, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we could just not even get to the topic of being pro-life or abortion, right? If we just sort of literally like talking about cutting it off at the source, right?
Yeah.
So that technology didn't really exist, right, at the time.
But there's a rise in it these days. Like young men are getting more and more vasectomies.
Oh, I know, yeah. So I'm wondering if, you know, how that informs, you know, your perspective with the people who, you know, where your texts come from, where your beliefs come from.
Yeah.
If that had been available at the time, do you think that it would have been different?
I think if someone like these, like if someone tried to start a religion now, and maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe there have been religions that have been started like in the past few years that are like super popular, but if someone tried to start a religion like Christianity or Islam or something like this, and you know they were like genuinely claiming someone had risen from the dead or someone had split the moon or, you know, all these other sort of like, you know, claims about reality, this would just like not wash nowadays. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm having too much faith in humanity, because like people still join cults and shit, you know. But like, I don't know, because like I think Nina's got a point. Like, if like the context nowadays is so different. So if someone was trying to start up Christianity nowadays, it doesn't seem to me like it would be as successful as it has been, because people are a lot more like, I don't know, to be honest, I was going to say people are a lot more knowledgeable nowadays, but I don't even know if that's true. But even just the stuff of like, we have a much higher like standard for evidence nowadays, you know, like maybe not the average person, but in terms of like, we have massive media organizations that do fact checking. We have forensics, you know, we have like courts that go through all of this evidence and stuff, right? if someone was genuinely trying to claim that they were like the son of God, they'd risen from the dead, or someone else was trying to say they, flew on a horse or split the moon or parted the sea or blah, blah, blah. Like, there's just so many more hurdles they'd have to get over nowadays for people to be able to take them like seriously on a widespread scale. I just can't see them being as successful nowadays. But then again, a lot of people are fucking idiots and will believe anything. So and look, but by that, I'm not saying that all religious people are idiots. Like, there are many religious people that are very smart, decent human beings, blah, blah, blah. But, there are a lot of people that believe a lot of bullshit. I just don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they would fly nowadays, but maybe they would. Maybe I'm having too much faith in humanity.
I don't know. I mean, I don't pretend to know Moses all that well.
Okay.
My gut would be like, no, like, you need to have some babies.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's, I think, generally, they leave. I don't know if they're left. But yeah, that's my gut, is that it'd be like, no, this is its intended purpose. So, just a fun little, from these texts.
Sure.
Right? So,
I don't know, do you just call it the Bible?
Yeah, I call it the Bible.
All right, we can call it the Bible.
So,
I just wasn't sure if there's maybe more that you're drawing from as well.
No, pretty much just the Bible.
Just the Bible, we'll call it that.
We have some systematic and dogmatic texts that, like, our church bodies espoused.
Okay.
So this is just a fun thing. Have you taken biology? Right, like freshman
A while
level
ago.
biology.
A while
Right.
ago.
Do you remember what the sexual reproductive cells are called?
Not off the top of my head.
Gametes.
Okay, I did know that actually.
Yeah,
I
so
doubted
gametes.
myself in the last
No,
second.
you're good. Yeah.
I had it.
So they're gametes, right?
Yeah.
You know what the Greek word for marriage is?
I don't.
Gamos,
Okay.
right? And so here's the fun thing,
Okay.
right? What happens when your gametes remain on their own?
I don't know.
They die,
Okay.
right? Like a sperm on its own, dead. Has
Okay.
has half the material needed to produce life.
Yeah.
An egg on its own, well, you know better than I do. But when they come together in marriage, right, and this is all supposed to be within this foundational thing of marriage that we, are kind of fussy about.
I've noticed.
Life, right, potential for life, and along with that comes all sorts of other,
Welcome to the chat, Forrest.
potential things.
Yeah.
Right, as you have noticed, right? And we believe in the cause of life. We believe that sin has entered the world, and so we believe that from conception, there's gonna be blemishes in that kid. Like, I got the most beautiful 5-year-old in the world, so it's only 4, but he'll be 5 on Thursday.
Okay. That's
He's
nice.
beautiful, right? I didn't need to teach him
Yeah.
to be disobedient or rebellious. I love him. Like, he's the sweetest. And I didn't need to be taught those things either.
Some people do though.
I'm not really sure the point he's trying to make, to be honest. I don't know if other people know the point that he's trying to make about the whole, like... Yeah, I mean... Like... So, is he trying to say that, like, the sperm is the representation of the man and the egg of the woman in marriage? And it's like... Okay, yeah, I get that. Like, evolutionarily, the whole reason that men and women exist is because they come together to reproduce, and that's the whole point of, that's how evolution happens, It selects for what is going to be the most reproductively successful. So, if we have two sexes and each of them have a gamete, then there is going to be some sort of, like, metaphors you can take from the gamete and apply them to the essentially, like, we are essentially vessels for, like, gametes, basically, evolutionarily, which are vessels for genes and blah blah blah. So it's like, but like, what? I don't really know, like, the ultimate point he was trying to make, though.
To be rebellious?
Some people just need to be taught how to behave.
Oh, for sure.
And some people never get it, right?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. People need to be taught.
Do you think that there is ever an inherent badness in somebody?
Yes.
And so...
I think all men are born...
And vegan equilibrium, also called Noodles. I'm also just going to call you Noodles because it's easier. Am I the only one getting closeted vibes from this pastor? I was not at all, to be honest. Yeah, so I think you may be on your own with that one, but yeah, I did not get those at all.
And conceived sinful.
Okay, all right. This is where we're getting out of my depth a bit, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think we're all born blemished.
Okay.
Right? Like I have horrible autoimmune disorders. Right? Like $10,000 a month keeps me at par.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Holy
right.
cow.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think you know, and so it's like, well, where did that come from? How do you cope with that? Well, I would draw that back to sin. Both sin, you know, probably from me drinking too much Bud Light in college, and just, you know, my mom has some of these disorders, right? So I can trace all this back, and this is how I explain.
So it's like, it's like I don't know the horrible autoimmune disorder he has, but like, I'm assuming he wouldn't wish it on anyone else, right? Like, that would be a dick move. Like, okay, your mum had it, you have it, but it's a dick move to put that on someone else, right? When they literally don't exist. Yeah, to even like, you know, benefit from any meaning you're going to try and say that comes from it, blah, blah, blah. And it's like he knows it can be carried, because I'm assuming he references his mother because it's partly genetic or it's wholly genetic. And it's like, I don't see how he thinks he has the right to be able to create someone and like run the risk of that for them. And it's like with the added complication of the autoimmune disorder, even without the autoimmune disorder, it would be bad. But with the added complication of the immune disorder, that he's saying costs 10 grand a month to keep himself treading water, basically. It's like, okay, so you have a kid, they then get that, if they get it, right? They've then got this, like, if you just boil it down to that one thing, they've then got this 10 grand they've got to sort out, like, every month now, this massive burden to be able to keep their head above the water, right? And okay, maybe he could say, yeah, well, I'll sort that out for them. It's like, you're not always going to be there. You don't know what's going to happen to you. You don't know what their financial situation will be for their whole life, all of this sort of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. That seems kind of wild to me.
Makes sense of our world.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that makes a lot of sense. That all sounds like very consistent, like with your viewpoint. And again, where we're just different.
Yeah,
I just don't think that
it's
that
fair.
we should gamble with other people. You know, I think that it's perfectly valid to think that. You know.
Yeah, like, especially, like, yeah, I'm not trying to demonize people with autoimmune disorders, but like, especially if you have like a particular thing that can make your child's life like particularly hard, you know.
Somebody asks me, why did you create me? I don't have the answer, that you have.
Yeah. Right.
For that, and so I don't think most people do. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And this is why I went to sit down, because like I think that there's a reason.
Yeah.
Love.
And so you think that love is why we should create people?
I think, like, in its purest sense, loving one another is creative.
We can love people who already exist, though.
I sure hope so.
Right. So again, we come back to should we create more people or not?
Yeah, but yeah, I think we should. I think we should create more people.
And I think the concept of like bringing someone into existence because you love them, to me, it comes off as kind of like a twisted form of love, because it's like, what is your love for them actually doing, right? So it's bringing them into existence, let's be honest, because you want to. Like, if you didn't want to bring them into existence, you wouldn't have, right? So like that, your form of love is like, I'm going to do something to someone else because I want to, because it fulfills something in me. And it's imposing risk on them, guaranteed suffering and death. Like that, yeah, that feels like a twisted form of love to me, Like, if I did that to anyone who currently exists, like I did something to them that carries that, heavy harm and risk of great harm to someone who already exists, just so that, essentially because I can benefit from it, that doesn't really sound like love in any meaningful sense, right?
Because then there's more opportunities to love more people, to care for them, and to like demonstrate a selfless love. Like, because like my kids.
And I think if someone calls it selfless love, they're just killing themselves, you know? Like, I think you're just deluding yourself at that point. Yeah.
I mean, the one guy I wandered by was like, kids are expensive. Yeah, tell me about it. I put them in private school. And I pay for the
Welcome to the chat, the man.
public schools.
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
Yeah, I think that that's great, but I think that there's also this recognition that most people don't, and most people can't, and that I come back to this idea that most reasons that people have are selfish. You know, they're sort of self-serving. They're self-fulfilling, and I think that, you know, I think that there's not really a lot of conversation that's being had about that, and I'm really interested in sort of shifting the narrative away from, you know, getting people to think. And I think if someone's going to have, I mean, I always think it's wrong to create somebody, don't get me wrong, but I think that at the very least, you know, people recognizing when their motives are selfish, which I think is, you know, 100% of the time, unless they have, you know, a basis for belief like you do, which I still, you know, I don't, I'm not with you on that one, but I can understand it, but the average person is just not really thinking about it, what they're doing and the consequences, and I'd like to change that.
No, I think your position is the natural position of someone who's not a Christian.
Oh, interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
very
really,
interesting
I think that is inherently it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's
I mean,
awesome.
like, yeah, our
Well, I actually didn't catch what he said there. Let me go back.
To change that.
No, I think your position is the natural position of someone who's not a Christian.
Oh, interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
very
really,
interesting
I think that is inherently it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's
I mean,
awesome.
like, yeah, our texts, as it were.
You come back.
Talk about this,
Okay.
right? I mean, this story is portrayed thousands and thousands of years ago in our Old Testament scriptures, and it's one of the reasons why things were tough for God's people.
Yeah.
So I fully understand your perspective. I sat down just because, like, I think there's a better, like, more hopeful, generous option for you.
Yeah, I think that I don't feel hopelessness.
That's good.
I mean, I'm sure he didn't mean it like this, but that kind of comes across as like patronizing. And I've often like found this with, well, not often, but I've sometimes found this with people. Like they can get quite like patronizing because they almost see you as like, if you're advocating this position, like you must be a victim in some way, maybe like a victim of this idea as like a mind virus or something. Yeah, and I just kind of find it like patronizing. Because it's like I could also do the same thing about like people who are optimistic, right? Like I could go up to them and be like, "No, bless, they don't understand reality. They're optimistic and but it's like I don't do that. Although maybe if they carry on like this, I'll do it back to them. I don't know. No, I won't. It will be a waste of time. But yeah, it's just like I'm sure he didn't mean it like that, but it does come across as a bit patronizing, to be honest.
Yeah, I just think that it's neutral, right? Like I see an opportunity where we could save somebody from a potentially really terrible life, like I said, it's a gamble. I think that we can choose to not make that gamble.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hopeful to think that people might be so compassionate towards people who don't exist yet.
Yeah.
I find a lot of hope in that personally. And I think that seeing a world full of people who are choosing to make what is a more difficult decision, due to societal pressures, we kind of talked about how society is structured when people age. I think that seeing people make what is, quote, the harder decision in some ways is hopeful, and I think that there's beauty in that compassion. So I think that we can still love people, but we can love the idea of people as opposed to creating somebody on which to put that love.
Yeah, see, I choose to have like a physical object.
I have physical objects,
Yeah.
right? It can be animals, it can be people, it can be even a garden, it could be myself.
You see, even when he says that, I prefer physical objects. So it's like, yeah, you prefer. Like, it is ultimately about what you want, right? Like, that is why people do it. That people put out this, like, air of, it's all for the child, I love my child, blah, blah, blah. And obviously, once they're here, they will love their child and stuff, or hopefully they will. But it's like, I created them because of the love for the child, and et cetera, et cetera. But actually, often, if you, like, look at the language they use and stuff, it just boils down to, like, what they want.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that we need to create children to have an outlet for that love.
Yeah. I love my kids, man.
As you should.
I love the idea of like their grandkids. I love them already.
I'm happy to hear that. As you should.
I'm gonna go hang out with my kid.
Enjoy.
So good to talk with you. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Make good choices out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You also.
All right. I'm gonna go see my kid.
All right.
Okay. I just want to ask what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice. So it looks like she's got another person sitting down. So hopefully that'll be the next one from Nina. I wonder what that next one's going to be like. But it's cool that he like waited around to speak to her. Yeah, I thought that was a good one with the pastor, to be honest. Like, he was like pretty open, you know, he was like very chill, obviously coming from like a very different standpoint. I'm also like, surprised that they didn't get onto the topic of hell, but like you're not going to in every conversation. But yeah, I enjoyed that one. That was a good one. So what I thought next is there are two well, actually I was going to do a poll so that we can vote on them, but one of them's like 3 minutes long and the other one's 17 minutes. So let's do the 3-minute video first. And then we'll go on to the 17-minute video. But we have been going for like 2 hours, so I might save that 17-minute video for another stream sometime. So this next video, I actually need a bit of help from you guys. So this next video is... And I was trying to think, I may have actually already reacted to this in a previous stream. I can't remember, but I don't think I have. So basically, there's this antinatalist called Fernando Vallejo, right? And he is, I believe, an antinatalist writer. He lives in South America somewhere, but the specific country is escaping me at the moment. And yeah, he's an interesting character. I don't know an insane amount about him, but if anyone knows of Fernando Vallejo already, please let me know in the chat any information you have about him, you know, share with us. That'd be interesting to hear. But he is like very forthright in how he talks to people about antinatalism. And there's a clip where he talks to a couple who are expecting a child, and they ask him what he thinks of them doing that. And he just fucking lets rip, basically. Like no holds barred. And yeah, so we're going to watch that. It's only 3 minutes long, and it's a clip taken from something like a wider video or a documentary or something like that, or a TV program. And I wondered if anyone... So let me share my screen so you can see it, right? So this is it here. So we're going to watch the video. We'll play it. But I want to know, does anyone know where this clip comes from? Because I'd be keen to like find the longer video that this comes from, but I can't find it. I don't know where it's from. I think a lot of the information about him will probably be in Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish, and Googling it in a language you don't speak is kind of hard. But yeah, if anyone knows, let me know, because it'd be interesting to learn more about him. And no one is messaging in the chat, so I'm assuming no one really knows about Fernando Vallejo. But yeah, if anyone has heard of him before, let me know in the chat. But yeah, we'll get into it now. So in case you didn't mention that, they've just said, we're about to have a child. What do you think of that? And obviously he's gone straight in there with, I think that you're criminals.
¿Cómo pueden traer un hijo a este desastre de país, este desastre de planeta? Es un crimen traer hijos a este mundo. Nadie tiene el derecho a reproducirse. Moralmente para mí es inaceptable toda reproducción. ¿Usted para qué quiere tener un hijo? ¿Qué le va a dar él a usted? ¿Cree que la va a sostener de cuando esté vieja o que le va a...?
Yo quería que él experimentara también la vida, también mi
¿Cuál es
sufrimiento?
usted primero que todo? No lo experimentó porque usted está muy jovencito, usted no ha envejecido, usted no ha visto morirse la gente en torno suyo, usted no ha recogido un solo perro.
They talk really fast, and I know some people English isn't their first language, so I am going to slow it down so that you can read the subtitles more.
Experimentará también la vida, también.
Okay, maybe that's too slow. All right, let's go 75.
¿Cuál es usted primero que todo? No lo ha experimentado porque usted está muy jovencito, usted no ha envejecido.
That's so true. Like, so many people, like when you create someone, you're essentially being like a salesperson of life, saying, yeah, life is good enough for me to create someone else and essentially force them to start living, right? So it's like, okay, it's one thing to be a salesperson for life. And obviously I would disagree with that sales pitch, but it's one thing to be a salesperson for life, but it's another thing to be a salesperson for life when you haven't actually been through all of life. And often, like, the bad stages of life, like the really bad bits, can often be accumulated near the end. That's when, like, you're more, you know, like, you start to mentally degrade, physically degrade, you're more prone to illness, you know, it's just harder to do things, etc. Yeah, and it's like you're essentially being the salesperson for life and not even having full knowledge and experience of what the thing is you're selling. Now, there's obvious reasons for why people are the salespeople for life without going through all of it, because obviously when someone's gotten old, they're usually not fertile anymore. Like, it's very rare for people to be fertile at that point. So obviously, when you're in your fertile years, that's when you're going to create someone. And obviously by that point, by definition, you haven't been through all of life. So I can understand why that's the case, but it shows how morally bankrupt the action is, right?
Usted no ha visto morirse la gente en torno suyo. Usted no ha recogido un solo perro abandonado. Usted no ha hecho una obra de caridad en su vida, o ha hecho muchas. Usted entonces no puede hablar. Usted no tiene autoridad moral para hablar.
Hay una cosa que es la vida que está, digamos que está huyendo por continuarse.
La vida que...
Oh my God, it's just like this delusional optimism of like, oh, there's something, you know, life is trying to thrive. And it's like, what are you talking about? These are just asinine, like, word soup. You're just trying to take buzzwords and push them together. It's like, you're literally going to create someone, right? And they could go through potentially awful suffering. It's like, all you can muster up is like, oh, well, there's something called life that's like, this is something that, like, writers put in a Hollywood film and then everyone, like, baths over it because it's so cliche. Do you get what I mean?
Llama la vida, y no tiene más vida una vaca que está en un matadero que usted se está comiendo y que están acuchillando que el hijo.
Oh, that's cool. So maybe he's vegan as well then. Yeah, that's cool.
Que tiene ahí que no es nada.
And it's very true, you know, these people who say, like, you know, these like fanatical life lovers, as David Pearce puts it, of like, you know, oh, I love life so much, I want to create, you know, people so that they can experience life. It's like, you fucking pay for cows and chickens to have their throats slit in a slaughterhouse, and you're saying you love life? Like, don't miss me with that bullshit. Like, you don't love life in any meaningful sense. You just have some sense of like, I want a mini me, I want to create someone, I want to have that experience. And I'm willing to create someone and put them through potentially, you know, horrific suffering and guaranteeing death for them so that I can get that. But don't try and pass yourself off as some sort of life lover. You're just trying to fulfill something that you want. Like, if you were actually a life lover, you'd be trying to secure the lives and well-being of individuals who already exist. You wouldn't be sending them to a slaughterhouse. It's complete bullshit. So I'm glad he pointed that out.
Cuando es un gusano.
El ser humano, usted tiene la capacidad también de reducir el sufrimiento.
Yeah, humans do have the capacity to reduce suffering, but you're doing jack shit about it. Like, if you're still, you know, eating animals, when he asked her, have you ever done charity work? They didn't say shit. You know, they're just looking at him gormlessly. You know, it's like, again, these benign, like, asinine things they're just trying to reel off.
Y yo lo hago. Quiero evitar el dolor y reducirlo en lo que puedo. ¿Por qué?
And also, as if, imagine going up to someone in a maternity ward and they've just had a kid and you ask them, why did you have that child? And they look up at you and they say, to reduce suffering. Bullshit.
Porque me nace el corazón.
Para nosotros, tener ese hijo igual representa un poco algo que no es tan...
Yeah, if it's not easy to justify or explain, maybe you should think about it, mate.
Fácil de discernir ni explicar. Que igual el hecho de que otra persona surja en esas condiciones en las que nosotros le estamos brindando a nuestro hijo es valedero, porque esa persona también puede cumplir ese mismo cometido que está haciendo.
can also do the positive things that you're doing. So he's doing a positive thing, and he's trying to convince you to not do the thing that you're saying you want to do, so that the individual that results from that thing can do the positive things that the guy who's trying to convince you not to do that thing is doing. That makes no sense. And also, just do the positive things yourself.
O sea que el niño tuyo lo vas a educar para que recoja perros abandonados y para que los esterilice.
No exactamente, pero para que sea una buena persona así.
And also, everyone knows that they're just saying this as a cheap get-out clause. Like, they're not actually going to do this stuff.
Bueno, hay que ver que ser buena persona.
¿Usted es buena persona?
No, yo no sé, eso es lo que ahí voy viviendo hasta que se acabe esto como puedo.
¿Y por qué sigue ahí insistiendo?
Vivir es muy difícil y morirse también. Las dos cosas son muy, 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 muy difíciles. Entonces a mí me da lo mismo una que otra. También entre estos niñitos podríamos tener ahí perritos, o terneritos, o ratoncitos, y sentiría la misma compasión por ellos y la misma misericordia. O caballitos, poticos.
Pues le genera amor y
Sí le genera amor, le genera ternura y compasión. Pobrecito lo que les espera. ¿Cuántos de estos van a ser vendedores ambulantes, cuchilleros, sicarios, paramilitares? Esperemos que ninguno.
Linda has just put in the chat, everyone to like the stream, which is very true. Thanks for the reminder, Linda. Yeah, if you're watching now and you haven't liked the stream, please do like the stream. And if you haven't said hello in the chat as well, say hello in the chat so we can see who's here. It'd be nice to see everyone. But yeah, thanks for the reminder, Linda.
Sicarios, paramilitares. Esperemos que ninguno de estos llegue a la presidencia de la República. Hacer el más por lo alto.
So that
and you can
so this was the next video that we were maybe going to watch, but actually it's 17 minutes long, which I think is a bit too long. I'm not sure I've got it in me, but I just wanted to see. So
and you can take one.
I'm just trying to see what it said at the end there. It gave a location and a year. It says Medellin, Colombia, 1942. That couldn't have been shot in 1942. That won't be the date then of what it was. Cool. Nice one. John has put in the chat that Fernando Vallejo has a Wikipedia article. I do not have a Wikipedia article. No, I do not, John. You do not have a Wikipedia article either. Okay, that's cool. So let's see what his Wikipedia article says. So Fernando Vallejo. So there looks to be like a recent oh shit. Looks to be a recent article about him, maybe. That's interesting. So, yeah, sorry I wasn't talking. I've just seen some, stuff. So, it looks like a year ago he gave a speech at some sort of animal rights thing. So, he seems to be active in the animal rights world. That's interesting. So, sorry, I'll share my screen so you can see what I'm doing. So I just like Googled him. So these look to be like relatively recent photos. That is the video where he's talking about some animal rights thing about a year ago. Then he's got a Wikipedia article here. Yeah, I heard from someone that I think he's like got something to do with film. Yeah, if you see all of these. Maybe he's a director, writer, filmmaker, right, and public intellectual. Okay, he was born in 1942 in this place. Colombia, okay. So, okay, right. That's interesting. I wonder if there's a way of contacting him. Or I don't even know if he speaks English. But maybe he lives in Mexico. Right. Anyway, yeah, if anyone has any more information about Fernando, then please email me it. Noodles is asking if I could put the video link in the chat. So the video that we've just watched, I will put all the links in the stream description once it's finished. So we're going to finish soon. So they'll just come back like 5-10 minutes after, and the links will be there. You can get it then. So we're not going to do the 17-minute video because 17-minute video, it turns into an hour of reacting, and I'm not sure I have it in me. I need to like rest a bit because I was like rock climbing last night. I was on a run this morning. So I just need to chill a bit. But thank you everyone for joining, for watching. Thank you everyone for engaging in the chat and liking the stream. Also, thank you to Wiseman for the donations and bovine, not secretions, but bovine blue stocking. Thank you both for the support. It's really appreciated. And watch out for the video tomorrow. Got a video coming tomorrow, 4 p.m. BST as usual. And I think that's everything. If anyone needs me, my email is in the description. The video links to the videos we've been watching will be in the description after we've finished. But thank you everyone for joining, and I will see everyone in the next one.